Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Krishna C. Nadella, and this is State of Mind on the road at McMaster University. We're here at the David Braley Athletic Center, and we have the real fortune of having the chance to have a one-on-one sit-down interview with Glen Grunwald, the athletic director for McMaster University. Glen is a former NCAA champion basketball player at Indiana University, playing under the legendary coach Bob Knight, and served as the general manager of both the Toronto Raptors and the New York Knicks. As the athletic director of McMaster University, we have a chance to really talk about the student athlete and the current environment in 2015 that they currently face, both here in Canada and in the United States. Join me as we have this conversation. Glen, thank you so much for joining us today on State of Mind. It's a real pleasure and privilege to have you on the show. First question, we're talking about students and specifically student athletes. You yourself were a student athlete at the University of Indiana. You had the privilege of playing under Coach Bob Knight. What lessons did you learn from him personally and professionally that you've taken into your career?
Well, that it's just not about sports. I think if you're a student athlete and you're focused only on sport, you're closing off several options for yourself. And I'm afraid sometimes it takes even place before people get to university, in the early years of high school, where everyone says they're going to be a pro athlete and they don't have to worry about studying. Well, no, very few people can make a living at pro sports, and those that make a good living at it are really few and far between. So I think it starts at the high school age, where you really have to focus on your education to make sure you're developing those options for yourself. Even if you turn out to be LeBron James and don't have to go to college, you should still really focus on your university education, because you can get hurt. Things don't work out. You might not be as good as your parents are telling you. So there's lots of things. But to really focus on the education, because that's a great opportunity to get your education while doing something you love and enjoy, and to really see how good you can become as an athlete.
Absolutely. Now, as the athletic director of McMaster University, you're engaged with the students again. How has the model changed with the advent of technology? The students that you're now overseeing here at McMaster, how has that changed from when you were a student athlete?
Well, it's in a lot of ways, it's changed dramatically in terms of the coverage and the work that's being done, and the player development and training technology and techniques. It's changed dramatically, but at the same time, it's still basically the same thing. It's still a sport where you're trying to put a ball in the hoop or run a ball over the line or whatever the sport may be. It's still fundamentally the same thing, and it still comes down to building a team. Finding your role on that team, accepting that role on the team, and then working together for a common goal. And that hasn't changed. And fundamentally, the team building, the character building is still there. It's still the same as it was back when I was playing.
Now, talk to me about that team building concept. As we've seen in the corporate world, we see so many, speakers come in to meet with companies now, talking about teamwork, talking about building a community. Is that something you've seen in your time as a general manager, now as an athletic director? Even though you're not on the court anymore, it's still very prevalent?
Oh, exactly. And people all want to play. Everyone wants to get in and play a big role on the team, but sometimes that's not going to happen. And that's true in a sports team. It's true in a corporate culture where, hey, you might not get that promotion or that assignment or whatever it might be, and you have to realize, well, hey, I've got to accept my role here and make the best of it and still contribute to the team and still be a positive factor, even though things didn't go so well for me personally as well as I might want it to be. And the same thing with defeats. We've all had suffered setbacks and things didn't go the way we want. And how do we deal with that? And how do we realize that, hey, well, there's another game, there's another work day. Let's keep trying to move forward and to get that confidence to not lose your confidence, and keep working towards what you want to do, and learn from those losses and those mistakes and setbacks. Those are important things. I think the other thing that's important to me is learning to be cooperative and friendly with your competition. Like rugby has a great tradition, right? After the game is over and they've beat their heads in against each other, they go out to the pub and maybe have a pint of beer and share in that camaraderie of being competitors in that sport. I think it's kind of unique, but I think it's something else that needs to be built into other sports as well. And the same thing in business, right? So you're a competitor, you're negotiating a deal, whatever it might be. At the end of the day, you have to sort of move on and still be willing to talk to and be friendly and be able to cooperate with others even after a tough deal or whatever might have happened.
That's a really good lesson, I think, for all of our students to pay attention to.
Right.
Now, you spent a long time in Canada. Even when I was a student, I remember your time with the Raptors. But now, as the athletic director of McMaster University, a Canadian university, this is a little bit of a different dynamic. We don't traditionally offer athletic scholarships here in Canada. We don't have the large financial impact that the NCAA has on college athletics in the States. What have you noticed are the similarities and the differences between Canadian athletics at the college level versus the United States?
Well, the similarities are that most of the student athletes wind up in the same place. Most of them don't go on to play professional sports, as we talked about before. Right. Most of them came to the university, and what are the important things that happen to them there? Do they get a good education? Did they make some good friends? Did they have some new experiences? Did they broaden their mind and have an awakening of what else is out there in the world beyond what their background was? And those things are true whether or not you're a NCAA athlete or a CIS athlete here in Canada.
And NCIS stands for?
Canadian Inter-University Sport.
Thank you.
So that's the NCAA equivalent. And then what happens with the team is the same thing. Are you competing with friends and learning those lessons and trying to become as good as you can be and help your team be as successful as it can be? So those all things are the same. Now the obvious differences between the NCAA and Canadian university sport is the revenue that's generated primarily by two sports, football and men's basketball in the NCAA, and that revenue is so immense that it does a great job in terms of funding a lot of other things that go on at the NCAA. And we don't have that same funding model, and whether it's a chicken and the egg because they have such great fan support, right, and then they can generate the revenue from those broadcast fees and ticket sales, or whether it could be the other way around. If we could get that TV coverage here, would that in fact generate some more revenue for CIS sports? But that's the key difference. But we do a great job here in terms of our student care and development, and I think it rivals what we were doing in the NBA. And obviously the people that are working at it don't get paid as much. The coaches don't get paid as much as NBA coaches, but they're still passionate about it and they're still excellent coaches. And I'm fortunate to work with the true professionals I have here at McMaster University.
So let me ask a question that I think some people think about, but we don't really talk about. Good athletic talent in this country, Canada, is there a push to keep them and have them come to Canadian universities, or is that almost like a sunken cost? You know that they're going to get tapped by the American schools to go play down south?
Well, I think it's an option to go to the NCAA. If you're a good athlete and you're being recruited by an NCAA school, that's great, and you should take a look at that. But you shouldn't do it without really looking at Canada. I mean, as I said, you're going to wind up pretty much in the same place.
Right.
And are you going to, is it going to be as good as it seems? I mean, because the grass is not always greener on the other side of the border. Lots of student athletes go down to the U.S. and come back here. Really? For whatever reason. They didn't get the same playing time, sure, too far from home. The expenses are really much greater in the U.S. than here in Canada. Sure. So there's a lot of reasons for it, but I think each person should take a look at it. And again, I think the focus should be on the overall experience, including athletes, but also the education aspect and the social aspect of it as well.
Now, the role of the athletic director has changed over the last quarter century. As Glen Grunwald, athletic director of McMaster University, what do you see your role as in terms of being a leader for our student athletes and our students as a whole?
Well, my role is to really deliver the vision for this department, a part of this university, right? So our mission here at McMaster Athletics and Recreation is to cultivate human potential through sport and recreation. And our vision really is to create the healthiest campus in the world through all those various things. And that's just not about physical health, but mental health and social health and spiritual health. So we do all sorts of things besides varsity athletes, recreation programs, instructional programming from taekwondo to mindfulness. It's a great job in the sense that I'm involved in so many different things and touching so many different people. We have a kids camp in the summer that's maybe the best thing we do, even though it's not our main function, but we have so many great facilities here that we open it up to the community and people can come here and bring their children in the summer. So my role is to sort of deliver that vision and that mission, and it's exciting to do that because it's such a great place here.
So I see a lot of passion in your voice.
Yeah.
This is obviously something that really you take enjoyment out of. So I don't want to make the unfair comparison between an athletic director and a general manager, but are there any comparables between your time with the Knicks and the Raptors versus McMaster?
You know, there's not that many, to be honest with you. It's just a different world in the NBA is what I know.
Right.
So you know, we're focused on 15 players and finding other players that are better than those 15 players you already have,
right,
and building that one team, and working with the coaches, and so much focus on just that small group of players and that one season and that one team, but here, you know, it's just there's so many things that are going on. It's just impossible for me as the athletic director to focus on that. And I have the responsibility for the revenue side.
Right.
I'm a cost center in the NBA. I'm just spending money, and hopefully those business guys can figure out ways to sell tickets and sponsorships and create some broadcast revenues to support all that. But here I'm also responsible for the revenue side. So it's sort of more like being the president or owner of an NBA team than it is being the general manager.
You have a much larger universe that you're overseeing, and it's not just basketball, it's not just football. Later on today, it's going to be women's rugby, and we have many other sports. So it really is about cultivating a culture more than anything else.
Right, exactly.
Now, I do want to ask a question that I think sometimes people like to have very polarizing opinions on, and it is the NCAA. We've seen over the last several years that there has been a lot of scrutiny, whether it be at Penn State University with the Jerry Sandusky scandal, the University of Miami with Nevin Shapiro. What is the place of the NCAA in 2015? The world has changed. Has the NCAA changed with it to be more mindful of its place within student athletics and, more importantly, taking care of student athletes?
Well, that's a great question, and certainly one we could talk about for a few days probably. But I think the NCAA is changing, and some by choice, some by force. You know, certainly some of those athletes are really generating a lot of revenue for their universities and for the NCAA. And they are often, again, I go back to my key point. What is the purpose of that? Is it the whole experience? Are they getting a good education? And are they having those other good experiences that come with going to university and post-secondary education? And I hope they are, but a lot of times I don't think that's true. And not that it's always the fault of the university athletic department, because it's a choice that the student athlete is making to take advantage of everything that's there. If they're not going to class or they're not participating in other things that the university offers, well, that's on them to some degree. But I think it also needs to be encouraged by the athletic department for people to do that. But you're right, it's a changing world. The revenues are so great that are being generated by, again, primarily those two sports. So I think there is you know, cost of attendance now is being paid in the NCAA. I think that's a good development because, you know, I know when I was in school, some of the fortunately, you know, my parents were able to support me, but you know, it was more difficult for other parents that I played with, and you know, it was a bit of a tough go to sort of, you know, be able to get back and forth to school and eat when the dormitory wasn't open, right? So I think those are good developments, and I would encourage, you know, further things down the line with that.
So I'm going to put you on the spot and just spend a little bit more time on this topic. If you were running the NCAA, top one or two things you would do in your first year of tenure?
Well, again, I would focus on, even before university, to go to the high school levels, to start at the freshman year and to say, if you expect to work with that and start from there, because by the time, you know, the student athletes are in the university, then you're counting on them to sort of learn when it's almost too late. So to really focus on the education and the other aspects of a university experience, and to not just focus on the athletic part of it. I know it's a big business, and you know, those wheels are turning, and they'll continue to turn. But to really make sure that those athletes that are in the system, that are contributing to that machine, that revenue machine, are really being treated fairly, and when they're done there, have real options and opportunities for you know, a career beyond sports. And I would really focus on that. To the student athlete experience, I think, is the main thing I would focus on, to make sure they're getting as much as they can and are ready for real life once they're done playing sports.
So let's take the conversation back to the student athletes. It's hard enough being a student. God knows I would not want to go back to college anytime in the near future. But as a student athlete, you're juggling school and you want to do well. but then you're juggling being one of the best at your sport, all while trying to also get through some of the most formative times in your life. What lessons, what experiences can you relay upon to our current students that are watching this show about how to manage their time, manage their bandwidth, manage their brand?
Right. Well, just their time. Obviously, time management's a crucial part of being successful as a student athlete, and to really plan it out, to look at not just this week or, what is my schedule, what do I need to do to prepare for these classes, these homework assignments, these exams, and then to make sure that you allot enough time to do that. And it's a simple skill in a way, but it's a lesson that I think everyone needs to do, whether you're a business person or an educator or a student athlete. So it's a key part of it, and it's also realizing what's important to you, and then understanding how are you going to get to those goals. What do you need to do to graduate? What do you need to do to get into business school or law school? What do you need to do? And then stepping back from there, what do I have to get? Do I have to get a certain GPA? Do I have to take an entrance exam? Those are all the things that take place. And if you can do that as part of the overall experience, again, not just sports, not just worried about training, then, but obviously training's a big part of it too. So to balance that out is a key part of life. And then when you're older, and hopefully you can apply those same things when you're working in the business world and trying to balance your family life with it too. It's not dissimilar.
So talk to me about mentorship. Talk to me about having a good support structure. You obviously are well accomplished in your career. Who are the type of people that helped you get through some of those formative years, and what would you try to parlay back to students now?
Well, my coaches, first of all, my parents were the most important thing. And I was blessed to have great parents, and they were very helpful to me. My coaches were a key part of it too. From my high school coach to my college coach, Bobby Knight, they've all been, challenging yet supportive, right? And I think that's the balance you got to have. You got to be challenged at the same time, be supported when things don't go the way you want. And I think, again, both those coaches were great with that. And then, one or two professors and courses that I particularly caught my eye, that I really enjoyed. Those were great. And then as I go through life, my friends and my former teammates, they've always been supportive of me too. And we've sort of stuck together in a way and helped each other when we can.
Gotcha. Now, I know it's a very corporate concept, 5-year plans. We're a couple years into your time as athletic director at McMaster University. In a perfect world, what would you like to accomplish during your time as athletic director?
Well, that we provide a great student experience, not only in terms of the athletic performance that we can field. I don't know if we can always promise to have the winning or the championship team, but to be competitive. I think that's an important part of that. That if you're going to come to McMaster and participate in a sport, that sport is at least going to be competitive, and you'll have a chance to achieve some success here. And it's really up to you in terms of how successful we are, how talented you are, how much work you put into it, and just how you perform. So I would like to say that athletic performance is not based upon the limitations that the university puts upon you, but only upon what your own talents and work will take you. And I think we're well on our way to that. And there's it'd be great if we could invest in a few more sports going forward. But right now we're focused on the sports that we are. And I think that would be the other thing, that if I can improve the business model here, that we're sustainable and being able to support a lot more sports and having great student experiences for that. And then on the other hand, on the recreation side, that we provide just, again, a great environment and a great spot for people to become healthy and really focus on their wellness and provide that opportunity for everyone in our community, not just our students, but also our faculty, staff, and the surrounding Hamilton community.
Excellent. Last question, but it's a big one. Best advice you've ever been given?
Best advice I've ever been given. I've gotten a lot of advice. The best advice I've got is well, it's something that Bobby Knight always used to say, is that everyone wants to win, everyone wants to be successful, but not everyone is willing to put in the work and effort to prepare to be successful and to win. So I think it's not just something that happens. I mean, obviously luck's involved to some degree, but it's again understanding what you need to do to achieve those goals that you set for yourself. And again, if you set those goals high, you can do it, but it's just you have to understand what it's going to take to get there.
Glenn, thank you so much for joining us.
Krishna, my pleasure.
That'll wrap up our show for today. If you like what you saw in today's episode, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you'd like to contact us through social media, you can reach us here at the following platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for the time. And remember, every life is a book. Make yours a bestseller. Have a good night.